Okay, well, let's get on with the first speaker. He's the co-author of Inbound Marketing. He has a top-ranked blog, which is called OnStartups.com. As of today, well, it's 21,000 subscribers. A few days ago, it's now 24,000 subscribers. He's the co-founder and chief technology officer of HubSpot. And just to let you know, HubSpot is an internet marketing company that helps leverage the internet to get found by qualified prospects. We're using it now, so I can tell you that it works. You're here today because of it. He has his master's in science and management and technology from MIT, Dharmesh Shah.
Thanks, Tim. All right, wow. Nice group. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to try and make up for some time here as, let me switch PowerPoint decks real quick. And I tend to wander around the stage a little bit. So by way of a very quick introduction on top of what, down button, down button, down button. There we go. I usually open these sessions and say, beyond what Jim said, is that he mentioned that I'm CTO of HubSpot, and we'll talk very briefly about what HubSpot does and kind of our current status. But I'm not a professional speaker. I'm a hackerpreneur, so which means most nights, including last night, around up till about 2 to 3 in the morning, I'm writing code. I'm working on product. I don't do professional speaking for a living. And this is how I used to open my speeches for a long time, because I did maybe about 2 or 3 of them in a given year, because I pulled a short straw in some meeting with my co-founder and said, okay, Dharmesh, because I'm on the official sales prevention team at HubSpot. So when I'm out talking to folks, I'm like, well, why do you need that? But anyway, so bear with me, but I've gotten, I think, a little bit better, because I've been doing a bunch of this since the book came out. Thank you all for those that have read the book, and those that haven't, you should. It's actually a pretty good book, relatively easy read. You can read on a flight from here to anywhere. So let's run through. I'm going to talk about inbound marketing. Very briefly about me, as Jim mentioned, I work for a company called HubSpot. We're about 3.5 years old now. Started literally while I was in grad school, which is where my co-founder and I met. The company's doing phenomenally well. I'll show you. We build marketing software for small business, and that's all I'm going to try and do in terms of selling you. I want to put this slide up because it's for a couple of reasons. One, to brag. The company's doing real. This is not traffic. This is actual customers. And if we plotted the revenue curve, it would be even steeper because the revenue per customer has actually been growing over our 3.5 years as well. So it's partly to brag, but partly because some of the stuff I'm going to tell you today is not stuff we kind of dreamt up in academia and said, oh, wouldn't it be nice if the world kind of worked in our configuration worked this way? These are things that we've tried across hundreds of small businesses, very much like yours in some cases, and the stuff works, right? So we've got I'm happy to debate things around social media and Google and search engine optimization. On most of the things I'm about to talk about, I happen to be right, although I'm happy to debate it. We have the data. We have the data to back it up, but I enjoy the conversation. So anyway, so HubSpot's doing well. We're around 2,400 customers now. We'll probably grow another 200, 300% this year. And we really had no setback from the economic downturn. That's all we're going to talk about in terms of HubSpot specifically. I might walk over here. Maybe I should be closer. Okay. Stand right here, just like the optimal zone. I'll move back that way. All right, so the book's doing well. Let's talk about you guys. So this is kind of the underlying premise. How many of you, I'll put, let's say a simple question out. The phone rings, and you actually answer the phone without looking at who called you, without looking at caller ID. It's like, oh, it's the phone ringing. It could be any random person. Sure, I'm going to pick up that phone and talk to whoever it is happens to be on the other line. We don't do that anymore. We don't open junk mail. We don't go through our kind of spammy emails anymore. And the way I like to think about this is as a society, we're essentially walking around with these little bubbles around us. And what these bubbles do is protect us from marketing messages. We become increasingly efficient at blocking out the classic marketing messages. We don't respond to telemarketers as much as we used to. We don't open junk mail as much as we used to. And all those things, not that they don't work, the argument is that they work less well. Because as people get better and better at blocking those messages out, as marketers, we have to spend more and more money trying to break through those bubbles, right? And so that's what we call outbound marketing. And as it turns out, walk this way. Walk all the way over here. All right. I'll speak from over here, and I'll walk over there every now and then. So marketing used to be about pushing your messages out. The way it used to work was you had this marketing budget, sometimes big, sometimes small, and you had a message that says, here's what I'm trying to sell. I'm going to be a reseller for CAD/CAM software in the New England area, which I kind of overheard in conversations, so I know one of you is at least out there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my marketing budget, I'm going to spread the message as best I can to the people that I think care, in the hope that some small fraction of people that do actually care will somehow hear or see that message and then call me and hopefully buy something from me. That's the kind of, I'm a simple-minded guy, but that's how marketing has worked for decades and decades. That says I've got a marketing budget, I've got a message, spread the message out, and try and get prospects and leads, and then hopefully convert them to customers, which is fine, except for the fact that it's increasingly expensive to reach people that way. So the premise of inbound marketing is that instead of spending your limited marketing budget trying to kind of cast this broad net in the hope that some small fraction of people come back, inbound marketing is the opposite of that. And the way to think about this is inbound marketing is the ability to kind of increase the probability that those that are already looking for you will actually find you. Right? And so this is predicated on the fact that somewhere out there, there is a demand for whatever it is you're selling. Somebody out there wants to buy what you have to sell. If there is nobody on the face of the planet that wants to buy what you have to sell, you have a problem much bigger than what we're going to be able to solve this morning. So let's assume somewhere, so your job as sales and marketing people often is to say, okay, well, there are 5,000, 50,000, 500,000 people out there somewhere that are interested in what I have to sell, and somehow I need to connect with them. And the outbound marketing model was one way to say, oh, I can do advertising, I can do telemarketing, I can do all these things to help try and reach those people. And so the idea beyond inbound marketing is that can you just increase the probability of those that are already looking, either directly or implicitly, can I just increase the odds that they'll find me? And so that's what inbound marketing is all about. And we'll talk about, well, where do you get found? Where do people actually spend their time? And the nice thing about this, in terms of versus, especially if you're in the small business kind of startup world where you don't have a massive marketing budget, is it's about creativity. It's about saying something useful on the web that essentially pulls people in versus kind of blasting this message out. And we can talk about use cases. We've got limited time. And by the way, as we're going through this, don't hold your questions. Well, maybe there's a microphone sitting there. Maybe you do want to hold your questions, so for the recording. But if you want to ask your question, if it's burning, feel free. You will not interrupt my train of thought. I'm not that organized anyway. It'll be fine. All right, so question is, where do you go? Where are people looking for you? So I talk about this kind of get found concept that we talk about in the book. And the answer is, there's a bunch of places. So we're going to talk about a few of them this morning. We'll talk about Google. And I'm going to tell you what I think every business person should know, the bare bones about Google, how Google works, and what you should do about it. Because the reality is there's hundreds of billions of searches happening on Google every month. Some of them are people searching for what you have to offer or variations thereof. Some of you are buying AdWords. How many people are buying like pay-per-click ads, doing AdWords or something? All right, so about a quarter of you. So you already know that there's a monetizable, oh, these people are searching in Google right now by typing in a phrase like CRM in New England or consulting services for ERP or whatever your market is. So clearly Google has a fair amount of traffic coming into it, lots of intent because if people are searching for something specific, often a product or service. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Twitter, not because it should be necessarily on your top 10 list of marketing channels, but because it's so controversial, and I think many of you likely dismissed it too early. And we'll talk about what it's doing and how it works, including in small business, including in niche markets, including in industries where people say, well, Dharmesh, my customers are just not online. They're not on Twitter. And we'll all make the case for why that might be wrong. But there's a bunch of these places, right? And including things like Foursquare for retail shops or whatever. So the idea here is that instead of trying to take this, take a full-page ad out in your local trade journal for whatever industry you're in, can you just spend that money to help the people looking find you? So I'll beat you over the head just a couple more times on that as we go through. We're going to get a little bit more tactical, so you have something to go home with. So this is something I'm very, very passionate about, is search engine optimization. And the idea here is you have a website. If you don't have a website, like as soon as you get out of this room, go start one. It's not that hard. There's 100 ways to do it. I'm assuming all of you have websites right now. So the idea is you have this website, and it's got some content out there, and you're hoping that some number of people will come to your website. You've probably got some call to action. You've probably got some form that someone fills out that says, oh, if you're interested in buying services or product or whatever from us, fill this form out and we'll contact you. So that's kind of the general business website. What we're going to talk about is how do you increase the odds that that website will actually show up in Google search results. Not by paying money to Google through things like AdWords, but actually in the organic results, the unpaid results, the free results, essentially, is how do you get your page ranked?